We never thought about the fact we were making history, but we did.
Catching history is as difficult as catching the wind. But in the small border town of Wahpeton, North Dakota,
There's nothing in a history book about what I'm going to tell you.
history is about to catch its own wind inside of a whitewashed prairie shed.
We loosened all the casters so it'll move any direction we need to push it.
The story that we've chosen to tell is the story of the Tuskegee Airmen. Okay, let's start coming down with it.
And with that story,
Watch oil tank.
the airplane
I think you're gonna have to go down a little bit.
Yeah, come down just a hair more.
that made them relevant.
We know this generation of people, this greatest generation, they're passing on, they're fading, and the aircraft, when it flies again, will ensure that their story continues to be told.
Greg, how's that fitting looking on you?
Doing okay.
Okay, a little more?
Yeah.
The flight to Wahpeton is one that took off decades ago. In fact, at an Army Air Corps training field in Tuskegee, Alabama.
Tuskegee Airmen were a group of men that were part of an experiment by the U.S. Army in late 30s and early 40s, basically to prove that black men couldn't fly.
They proved them wrong.
Black men could fly, and the Tuskegee Airmen proved it beyond any reasonable doubt.
We knew we had to be good and damn lucky to get through the program. The slightest infraction, why they would had an excuse to eliminate us from the program, washed out.
The pilots just didn't earn their wings. They earned the Army's respect and a mission, Europe.
All the units in Europe painted their airplanes distinctively so they could tell them apart.
Every group had to have some kind of a designation. We happened to have red paint, so they painted our tails red.
The Tuskegee Airmen escorted bombers into the heart of Nazi territory. And unlike other fighters at the time, Tuskegee pilots never left the bombers alone.
We became known as the Red Tail Angels because when the bomber crews discovered that they were no longer suffering losses when they had us for escort, they started to request our services.
They were quickly judged by the color of their bravery and not the color of their skin.
This was my country, the only country I knew, and I was willing to put my life on the line for it.
But when the guns of war went silent, so did their story.
We did not come back home as heroes.
Got to go back. This one's a little bit bigger diameter.
It took 50 years for history to remember.
Yeah.
It didn't come from a book, but from a plane. A P51 Mustang from the Minnesota Commemorative Air Force. The Red Tail Project was born.
It's what this aircraft is all about. It's talking about the Tuskegees and everything that many other veterans have done for us and are doing for us today up till this point in time.
Need a longer one?
Volunteers, mostly from Minnesota, spent years rebuilding the Mustang. But when their dreams got bigger than space, the plane went to Tri-State Aviation in Wahpeton for restoration.
Let's get this forklift out of here.
Finally, in 2001, the dream took flight.
This aircraft, this mission of telling the story is bringing it to light in people's eyes.
The plane flew in thousands of air shows, retelling the story of the Tuskegee Airmen to millions.
I firsthand witnessed bomber crews tell Tuskegee Airmen, original Tuskegee Airmen, thank you for what they did 50 years ago.
Some of them had tears in their eyes. We waited 50 years to thank you for saving our butts.
But at an air show in Bay City, Wisconsin, history died again.
We were at the air show and we watched the aircraft go down.
The crash killed pilot and project leader Don Hines of Woodbury.
My dad gave a lot of his time, a lot of his resources, and ultimately his life in telling the story of the Tuskegee Airmen.
The volunteers and members of the Red Tail Project knew the crash would not stop the Tuskegee Airmen story.
It was determined that this aircraft could be put back together again. That was kind of we focused on that, and that started us on our journeys coming up to Wahpeton.
Tony, you're right here. Right here.
There we go.
Once a month, a half a dozen volunteers from the Twin Cities come to Wahpeton to give the plane and their story new wings.
The guys that are married, they have the same problem I do. Their spouses and family put up with all the sacrifices. So again, I think it just points to how important the project is.
The project has taken months.
Well, today we put the engine in the airplane. That's a big day.
Need a wing. Now we just need a wing.
Now we just need a wing and a cowling.
Get her going.
But through this plane, they have found a way to not only catch the wind, but catch history before time once again lets it go.
That's what this aircraft's about, so we don't forget about that.
I'm Tim Blotz, Fox 9 News.